Just had Walker come by, the Chief Commercial Officer from Woody Nelson. Had a chance to just catch up with him, ask him a few questions, drop some gems. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Walker, tell the people a little bit about yourself. Like, what industry did you start in, and when did you get into cannabis?
Out of university, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, then RBC Dominion Securities as an investment advisor, and then after that, cannabis. Coming out of the banking sector, I realized that I was not a fit for banking, and that it didn't matter if it was RBC or anyone else. I needed to be somewhere else, and cannabis was an industry that to me felt undefined and where I could be part of building the foundation of something new, and that obviously appealed to me. So, 5 years later, a couple stops in cannabis retail, here I am.
How does one become a Chief Commercial Officer for a national brand such as Woody Nelson?
A lot of good luck, a lot of work ethic. I was introduced to our current CEO, and just as maybe this is going to be a fit. He was in the process of launching what would eventually become Woody Nelson, and we had a personality fit. So there's a little bit of good luck. We kind of recognized some work ethic and some philosophical alignment that good for us, but also good luck. And then we were off to the races. I didn't start off as the Chief Commercial Officer because we were a small team, and as a small team you don't need a Chief Commercial Officer. But as we continued to build and build and build, the company did eventually need a Chief Commercial Officer. And at that point, the only logical, reasonable candidate for that role was the person who had kind of built all those functions within the business. And of course, I didn't do it by myself, but I would say that's one way of becoming a Chief Commercial Officer.
What skills would you say is important in being successful in a role like yours? And how important is delegation in your mind when it comes to running a big company such as Woody Nelson?
Delegation is an interesting one because those who are more familiar with management are constantly reminding themselves to delegate more and more and more. But in the cannabis landscape, we are running ultra lean, which means that we're wearing a lot of hats, and there's only so much that you can delegate. And I find that there's still a significant amount that you have to take on your own. And it's maybe in another industry or a more traditional business, that wouldn't be the case. It would be continue to delegate, continue to hire more people. But if you can't hire more people and you need more work done, or you'd like to accomplish more, a lot of times it's just more hours, and sometimes you yourself learning new skill sets that you didn't previously have, so you can fill that role.
That's amazing advice, and it really gives like a little insight into what it's like working in this industry. For someone who's a budtender or someone who's looking from the outside, trying to get started and make a career out of being in the cannabis industry, what's a piece of advice you'd give to that person?
Patience. Many of us wish that the cannabis industry was more resourced, could pay better wages, could give more of a work-life balance and all these kinds of things, but that's just not the reality of the industry right now. And so if you are someone who prioritizes those things, it might be an exercise in patience to wait for those things to arrive at this industry. But if you want to get in now, there is also an opportunity for you to endure the things that other people might not want to endure, for you to make sacrifices that other people are unwilling to, and through that, and patience through that, be able to arrive at a place where other people are unwilling to travel to.
And I just want to touch on that a little bit. Like, a lot of people think being in the cannabis industry is just a money printer, and that everyone's making money. I want you to shed some light a little bit in terms of the reality of the industry, and what are some of the challenges that leaders like yourself have to go through every single day.
We broke. The whole industry, or not the whole industry, there's obviously pockets of cash left, but this is an industry that took in a lot of investment capital at the very beginning and spent it on a lot of things that didn't work. Like, there are miles upon miles of greenhouse space that either went unused, or the weed that they produced was never sold at a market price, at a loss. Companies went bankrupt, blah, blah, blah. And now we're at a position where there are certain companies that are well run and having commercial success, and in a more kind of traditional industry, something that you would want to invest in, but because there's still a sour taste in the mouth and still some uncertainty around our industry, that capital is gone. And so right now we're in an environment where retailers are stretched thin, LPs have run out of money, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do with what they have left. And one of the nice things about this is that there's a lot of people who required an immense amount of cash in order to run the kind of business that they knew how to run. And the people who are left over seem to be the ones who are able to think creatively and to be lean and to be innovative and to find solutions without that giant war chest that other people may have needed.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I mean, there's so many brands in the industry right now. Tell us a little bit about Woody Nelson. What makes you guys unique? What makes you guys different? And what makes you guys stand out amongst everyone else?
Probably quality. And I don't think it's going to be one or two things that make us unique. I think it's going to be a series of details. Like, we are not only based in, but founded by people from the heart of cannabis country. The talent that we have access to, the generational knowledge that has been passed on to us is unlike anywhere else in the world. So that's something that's super important. But we've also kind of taken what we've learned in prior careers and prior industries and built what we consider to be one of the most advanced cannabis cultivation facilities in the world right now. And so being able to kind of have great genetics, have great talent, have a great facility, organic living soil is a big part of what we do. And so kind of all those details stacked up results in a great product. And then we try and wrap that great product with a brand that is soaked in authenticity and transparency, and just trying to be the brand that we would want to buy products from.
Just to give a little bit insight to the customer or the everyday consumer that comes into a store, what's a misconception that they might have about the industry, or what's one thing that you wanna just enlighten them and let them know about cannabis, the industry, and Woody Nelson in general?
For call it the last 5 years, we've seen a significant amount of inflation in prices outside the cannabis industry, whether it be groceries, insurance, childcare, things like that. And in the cannabis industry, we've seen a decrease in prices. And there are reasons why the decrease in price happened. And it was great for the consumers and great for certain retailers who were really leaning into the value and budget segments. But the mechanics that created that glut of supply that resulted in cannabis being sold at less than the cost of what it costs to produce, that's now starting to go downstream. The super low cost, like under $1 a gram cannabis, is no longer available on the bulk market. And so now we're starting to see growers get paid more and more for their craft, which is nice because we want the growers to be able to have a sustainable business. But when growers are now starting to fetch prices of like $2.50, $3 a gram, and some of this is coming from the export market, we're now looking at a paradigm where unless consumers are willing to pay a higher price for their products, Canada's best producers will start to send their flower outside of Canada. And so it's this really unfortunate situation where like consumers are just as lean as the rest of the supply chain. So they're trying to make ends meet, but so too are the retailers, so too are the growers. And where we find this equilibrium is something that's to be determined.
That's great insight, and it's super true, especially me being a retailer. If you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice to your 20-year-old self prior to entering into this space, what would you tell yourself?
You might have to unlearn as many things as you have learned. This is something that I've kind of struggled with, but have also started to make peace with, and that's a lot of the recipes for success that I was given growing up are not things that played out as an adult. Things that, they made sense to the people who were giving me the advice, and the advice was sound and made with the best of intentions. But because they couldn't anticipate the environment that we're going to be competing in, the advice didn't land. And so one of the things that I've had to kind of understand is that as the world continues to change, so too must our recipes for success. And so understanding the situation, being open-minded to what it is and not what you would rather it be, and being able to adapt and almost physically, if not metaphorically, evolve as you go. And that has been kind of my saving grace through this, and maybe it will be for someone else.
That's awesome. So final two questions. So as the Chief Commercial Officer, you're a leader of a lot of people. What's one trait or a few traits that you would like to highlight in terms of being an effective or a good leader of teams?
I don't even know if I'm a good leader. I work hard. That is perhaps my saving grace. There is always an abundance of effort. But beyond that, I would encourage honesty. I know that there are certain leaders in this industry who would tell their team that things are great when things aren't great, would not let them know that there's some bad news coming down the pipeline because they're trying to spare their feelings and put them in a better state of mind. But the approach that I've taken has been honesty at every turn, even if the honesty hurts. And what I found is that that builds trust within the team. They know that, like, if I know something bad is coming down the road, then they're aware of it as well. They can prepare for it, they can adapt. And so it improves communication, it improves your ability to respond to challenges and obstacles, improves your ability to problem solve. Honesty is big.
We'll do one last one. If you could change one thing about the current industry right now, what would it be?
I think there's some core regulations that, if they were changed, would make a significant positive impact on this industry, one that would give our best operators financial stability and allow them to build the industry that I think not just these operators want, but Canada as a country wants. The policymakers, the politicians, the industrialists, like, we're in a position where, 5 years from now, we could be leading the global marketplace in cannabis. We could be leading the global industry. But if we don't make those changes and we continue to operate like it's 2019, there are going to be other countries that come along. When they legalize, they're going to look at what we've done and say, like, okay, they did a couple things right, but you see how all these things are holding back their industry? We're not going to make those mistakes. We're going to learn from them, and then we're going to outcompete them. And the US is certainly going to do that. One of the presidential candidates recently said, like, we need to legalize cannabis. That's a strong indicator that within the next 4 years, we will be competing with the US. And so these are things that it's low-hanging fruit if the right people are motivated. And I don't know that they are motivated today, but finding a way to motivate those people to make those decisions is maybe a new priority for our industry.
Incredible. Thank you so much for your time. That was like amazing, and I hope that it shares some light to what it really is like being in the industry and working in it. So thank you so much.